Welcome to a live discussion on COVID-19, a new world order and its impact on women. Before we start, I'd first like to plunge in and introduce our panel. We have Amita Arutpragasam. She is a senior assistant editor at Himal South Asian. She was formerly the head of research and policy at the Secretariat for Coordinating Reconciliation Mechanisms and private secretary to the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister. Next on our panel, we have Ambika Satgunanathan. Ambika is an Open Society Fellow from October 2015 to March 2020. She was a commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. We also have with us Soraya Marika Dean. She's a lawyer, interfaith leader, award-winning international activist, community organizer, and a gender equality advocate. We've also got Shreen Abdul Sarur. Shreen is the co-founder of Mana Women's Development Federation and Women's Action Network. She's working to promote women's rights and preparing evidence-based lobby documents to reform discriminatory laws and practices. Our final panelist is Indika Dayaratna. He's an independent trainer and consultant of gender equality and encouraging men's engagement in the prevention of gender-based violence. Welcome, everyone. We've also got Honorable MP Sajith Premadasa here with us today. He is the party leader of the Samagi Balawegaya. So during his presidential election campaign last year, he launched a women's charter that focused on certain issues and concerns faced by women in Sri Lanka, and it offered policy alternatives. So on the backdrop of that, we're here today to have a conversation with Mr. Premadasa and to also answer some very tough questions with regards to women in Sri Lanka and, more importantly, the impact of COVID-19 on women. So before we start, to everyone joining in, I'm going to run through some very quick housekeeping rules. First, questions can be sent via Facebook. If you're watching this via one of our live stream, one of our live stream pages, please make sure to comment your questions below, and we will take them up during the discussion. But we need to emphasize that there can be no hate speech on any of the comments or on the remarks that you make. Hate speech will not be tolerated. The panelists and speakers get a set time limit. They are time bound during the conversation. So a panelist will get 3 minutes to ask a question, and the speaker, Minister Premadasa, will get 5 minutes to answer a question. So panelists, when your 3 minutes is up, you will hear a double tap, and the same will apply when the speaker's time is up. Another very important housekeeping rule is that politicians cannot use this platform for election campaigning. This is purely a content-based discussion, and this should not be used as election propaganda. So we're going to jump right into the discussion. There's 5 rounds of discussion. First, we're going to start with hard talk. So Minister Premadasa, we have 3 questions for you during the hard talk round. These, we believe, are tough questions that need to be answered. So first, I'm going to move on to Shreen for her question. Shreen's going to talk about a question, a concern that's been very prominent in the recent past, and something that needs to be answered immediately. Shreen, over to you. Shreen, you're actually on mute.
Unmute, yes.
Yes, perfect.
Good evening, Mr. Premadasa. Thanks, Anuki. Mr. Premadasa, I have 2 questions related to COVID and Muslims. There has been a heavy-handed anti-Muslim campaign in the recent past, and the Muslims have been vilified as coronavirus carriers and spreading it to others. Muslims are also blamed for not obeying lockdown and curfew rules. What is your response? Related to that, there's another question I have. Maybe you can take your time and answer both questions. What is your position on compulsory cremation of COVID-19 or COVID-19 suspected dead bodies? As you know, to date, 5 Muslim bodies have been cremated, and 2 of them, to our knowledge, has been not even COVID positive. And also, as you may be aware that this cremation only rule has made Muslims not to seek treatment for symptoms for coronavirus, but also for other illnesses due to fear being cremated. They are very scared to go to the hospital because if they die there, they will be cremated, and it's a punishment in Islam. The nightmare of being cremated after one's death has created greater fear than the fear of the pandemic itself. What is your position on Muslims being given the option of burial when over 180 countries permit burial and the WHO has endorsed it? Thank you.
Good evening. I firmly believe that gradually the political animators in our country, especially the political animators who have, and politicians who have based their politics on race, ethnicity, religion, rather than on a economic development platform or a national development platform, they have resorted to racism as a methodology to gain propaganda, popularity, and enhancing and supporting the various political constituencies that they represent. So the unfortunate situation is that COVID is a health emergency or a health exigency that needs effective and efficient political, economic, health, social, and all other interventions. And we all have to be united, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, ethnicity, and various other differences that we have among ourselves. Unfortunately, race has been brought into the eradication of COVID as a methodology and a tool to use race as a political instrument to gain political popularity. And that is very unfortunate. We believe very firmly that Sri Lankan society ought not to be a racist society. We have to be cognizant of the various cultural, religious, and other differences or vicissitudes. And we have to recognize them, and we have to appreciate that. So I firmly believe that in this context, in the COVID environment, we have to focus on COVID-19 menace and the major methodologies that we have to adopt to eradicate it, rather than using COVID as a political tool to gain political popularity among a small section of our people. Second, as far as the question that was posed with regard to burials, I think even as we speak, close upon 180 odd nation states in the international community, they are following WHO guidelines. And Sri Lanka too should follow WHO guidelines in a consistent manner. If we are agreeable to following WHO guidelines in a universal aspect, we should not differentiate it to fit one's own political ideologies and political thinking. WHO has quite correctly espoused certain methodologies to follow when it comes to burials. And I think Sri Lanka should follow that. When it comes to health guidelines in terms of the various precautions, the wearing of masks, social distancing, PCR tests, antibody tests, rules and regulations with regard to medicine, if we are following WHO guidelines, we should be uniform and consistent in following those guidelines when it comes to burials. If there is a health danger, then the proper medical authorities and WHO would have explained the procedures that are allowable but WHO has very openly and specifically stated certain precautions that need to be taken and the guidelines that they have to follow when it comes to burials. It's quite clear, it's quite apparent. So I think it's very important at this juncture that when we are coming out of COVID, the post-COVID scenario for Sri Lanka should entail eradication of COVID-19, and together with, we should also eradicate racism in our society. Taking decisions based upon race, ethnicity, religion, color, caste, and one's economic and social stature, that is uncalled for and that is unacceptable. And we shall strive to oppose such tendencies that promote and propagate racism, discrimination, and marginalization of people and communities in society based on various bogus reasons.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. I think we're going to move on to our second question. I'd like to pose this question to, Indika is going to pose this question. Actually, this is again a concern for women that have arisen during COVID-19, the incidence and increase in domestic violence, where women are, they're not made to feel safe in their own homes. Indika, over to you. Indika, you're on mute as well. Okay, perfect.
Sajith මැතිතුමනි මට ඇත්තටම මගේ ප්‍රශ්නෙත් කොටස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා මුලින්ම ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපි හැමෝම දන්න විදිහට සාම්ප්‍රදායිකව අපේ සමාජයේ කාන්තාව සහ පිරිමියාට පැවරෙන අපි කියන ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ සමාජභාවීය භූමිකාවන් එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ අයගේ කාර්යභාරයන් ඒගොල්ලන්ට පැවරෙන වගකීම් ඒ වගේම ඒ අය සම්බන්ධයෙන් පවතින අයිතීන් භුක්ති විඳීමේ හැකියාව පිළිබඳ තත්ත්වයන් ඒ වගේම කාන්තාව සහ පිරිමියා සම්බන්ධයෙන් වෙන වෙනම සමාජය විසින් කාන්තාවකින් සහ පිරිමියාගෙන් අපේක්ෂා කරන යම් දේවල් වගේම කාන්තාවට සහ පිරිමියාට වෙන් වශයෙන් සමාජය විසින් නිර්මාණය කරලා තියෙන සීමාවල් වගේ දේවල් මත පිරිමියා සහ කාන්තාව තමන්ගේ දෛනික කටයුතු වල යෙදෙන ස්වභාවයක් තමයි අපි දැනගෙන හිටියේ. මේ අනුව කාන්තාව වැඩ සහ පිරිමි වැඩ කියලා සමාජය විශ්වාස කරපු බෙදීමක් තිබ්බා. සහ තාමත් තියෙනවා. නමුත් මේ COVID-19 වසංගත තත්ත්වයේ පැතිරීමත් සමගම විශේෂයෙන්ම ඇඳිරි නීති තත්ත්වයන් සහ මේ සමාජ දුරස්ථභාවය සහ නිරෝධායන ක්‍රියාවලිය හරහා බොහෝ පිරිමින්ට සහ කාන්තාවන්ට නිවාසයට වෙලා තමන්ගේ නිවස්වල වැඩිපුර කාලය ගත කරන්න සිද්ධ වුණා. ඉතින් මේ අතරතුර වාරේ අර මම පෙර කිව්ව සමාජය විසින් සම්මත කරගෙන තිබ්බ ගැහැණුන් විසින් සහ පිරිමින් විසින් කළ යුතුයි කියන කාර්යභාරයන් බොහොම ධනාත්මක වෙනසකට ලක් වෙන බවක් යම් තාක් දුරට අපි දුටුවා. නමුත් මේ අතරේ අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දකින අර පිරිමියා වැඩිපුර තමන්ගේ කාර්යභාරයෙන් මිදිලා පිරිමියාගේ කාර්යභාරය කියලා සමාජය විශ්වාස කරන කාර්යභාරයෙන් මිදිලා වැඩිපුර නිවෙස්ගතව සිටීමට සිද්ධ වීම හරහා යම් ගෘහස්ත හිංසන තත්ත්වයන් ඇතුළු කාන්තාවන්ට සහ ගැහැණු ළමුන්ට මුහුණ දෙන්න වෙන යම් අකටයුතුකම් එහෙම නැත්නම් වෙනස් කොට සැලකීම් සහ විශේෂයෙන් අර පෙර සඳහන් කරා වගේ අනුකි සඳහන් කරා වගේ ගෘහස්ත හිංසන තත්ත්වයන් වගේ වල වැඩිවීමක් ඔබ දකින්නවද නැත්නම් ඔබතුමාගේ මතය කොහොමද මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන්?
අත් වශයෙන්ම ඔබතුමා අහපු ප්‍රශ්නය තුල තිබෙන අන්තර්ගතය ඉතාමත්ම භයංකාර තත්ත්වයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ වැඩිපුර පුරුෂ පාර්ශ්වයේ නිවසේ වැඩි වෙලාවක් ගත කරනවා නම් ඒ තුලින් කාන්තාවන්ට සහ දරුවන්ට හිංසනයක් අත්පත් වෙනවා නම් එතන තිබෙනවා මහා භයංකාර ඊ타මත්ම ජන සමාජයට අහිතකාරී ප්‍රවණතාවයක්. එතකොට මේ නිවසේ සිටින්නෙත් පිරිමියා වගේම පවුලේ තාත්තා නේද? එතකොට ඒ තාත්තා කියන්නේ ස්වාමි පුරුෂයා. එතකොට ස්වාමි පුරුෂයා භාර්යාව ඇතුළු දූ දරුවන් රැකගැනීමේ කර්තව්‍යයේ නිරත වීම ඒක දවසේ කාලයකට සීමා වෙලා තිබෙන දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක 24 පැයම 365 දවසෙම පුරුෂයා Taman විවාහක නම් කාන්තාවක් විවාහ කරගත්න නම් ඒ වගේම දරුවන් බිහි කරා නම් ජීවිත කාලය පුරාවටම සැදී පැහැදී සිටිනවා ඒ දයාබර බිරිඳත් ලෝට බිහි කරපු දයාබර දූ දරුවනුත් රැක බලා ගන්නට ආරක්ෂා කරන්නට COVID-19 කියන භයානක වසංගතය නිසා පිරිමි පාර්ශ්වයේ වැඩිපුර නිවසේ ගත කරනවායි කියලා කාන්තා හිංසනය ළමා හිංසන සහ අපචාර ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවයි කියන්නේ ජන සමාජයේ අපි කොතනද සිටින්නේ? ජන සමාජයක් හැටියට ඔය කොච්චර කවුරු කතා කරත් අපි මැදි ආදායම් රටක්, දියුණු වීගෙන එන රටක්, ඔය කොච්චර වචන භාවිතා කරත් අපේ ගති පැවතුම් වලින්, අපේ මානසිකත්වයෙන් මෙවන් ප්‍රවණතාවයන් COVID-19 නිසා වැඩිපුර නිවසේ ගත කිරීම නිසා මේවා වර්ධනය වෙනවයි කියන්නේ ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම එවන් අකටයුතුකම් එවන් පහත් ක්‍රියාදාමයන් වර්ධනය වෙන ජන සමාජයක් මම දකින්නේ දියුණු වෙන ජන සමාජයක් හැටියට ඒක අන්ත පරිහානියට පත් වෙන ජන සමාජයක් හැටියටයි මම දකින්නේ. ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ සමානාත්මතාවය ගැන අද දවසේ කතා කරන්නට දෙයක් නැහැ. එය ස්ථිරයි, එය මහ පොළොවේ යථාර්ථයක්, එය ක්‍රියාත්මක විය යුතුයි, ක්‍රියාත්මක කළ යුතුයි. එය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම උදෙසා දේශපාලන ආර්ථික සමාජමය නීතිමය ව්‍යවස්ථාමය වටපිටාව අපි සකස් කර යුතුමයි. අපි හැමෝම කතා කරනවා සමානාත්මතාවය දේශපාලන පරිසරයක් තුළ, මැතිවරණ පරිසරයක් තුළ ඡන්ද ලබා ගැනීමේ ආයුධයක් හැටියට. ඒ මක් නිසාද අපේ රටේ ජනගහනයෙන් බහුතරයක් අපි දන්න විදියට දල වශයෙන් 51.5% සිටින්නේ කාන්තාවන්. ඒ නිසා මැතිවරණ කාලෙට බොහොම සුලභව අහන්නට ලැබෙන දේශනාවන් තුළ කාන්තාවන්ට යුතුයකම් ඉෂ්ට වෙන්නට ඕන, කාන්තාවන් රැක බලා ගන්නට ඕන, කාන්තා සමානාත්මතාවය ස්ථිර කරන්නට ඕන, ඒ වගේම දූ දරුවන්ගේ අයිතීන් සුරක්ෂා කරන්නට ඕන. මේ වගේ ඊ타මත්ම සුන්දර කතා රසකට අපිට අපේ කනට ඇහෙන්නට ලැබෙනවා. නමුත් මේ හැම දෙයක්ම මහ පොළොවේ යථාර්ථයක්. ඒ මැතිවරණ නොපවත්වන 24 පැයේ 365 දවසෙත් ක්‍රියාත්මක විය යුතු දෙයක්. මේ වැඩපිළිවෙල හරියාකාරව ක්‍රියාත්මක නොවන්නේ නම් අපි බරපතල සමාජ අර්බුදයකට මුහුණ දීලා තිබෙනවා. සීලාචාර ශිෂ්ට සම්පන්න ගති පැවතුම් ක්‍රියාත්මක නොකරන ඊ타මත්ම අශිෂ්ට ජන සමාජයක් හැටියට හඳුන්වන්නට සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මම හිතන්නේ එක පැත්තකින් දැනුවත් කිරීම, මිනිස්සෙක් හැටියට කොහොමද අපි හැසිරෙන්නට ඕන, අපේ යුතුයකම්, ප්‍රතිපත්තීන්, සාර ධර්ම, ශිෂ්ට සම්පන්න භාවය සහ අශිෂ්ට ක්‍රියාවන් අතර වෙනස, සීලාචාරත්වය පිළිබඳව දැනුවත් වීම, මෙන්න මේ දේවල් පිළිබඳව අපේ රටේ ජන සමාජයේ විවිධ තැන්වලින් විශේෂයෙන්ම මම දකිනවා ගමේ දහම් පාසල, සියලුම ආගම් වලට සම්බන්ධ දහම් පාසල, ඒ වගේම ගමේ පාසල, ඒ වගේම දෙමව්පිය දැනුවත් කිරීම, ඒ වගේම දෙමව්පිය හැසිරීම් රටාවන් තුළ කුඩා දූ දරුවන්ට ඇතිවෙන හැදියාව, ඊට අමතරව ඉතාමත්ම තද නීති රීති ක්‍රියාදාමයන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට ඕන විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ කාන්තාවන්ට එල්ල වෙන හිංසනය පිළිබඳව ඒ වගේම දරුවන්ට මුහුණ දෙන්න තිබෙන මේ විවිධ අකටයුතුකම් මේවා පිළිබඳව නීතිය තදින් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නට ඕන. නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන ආයතන මුළු රටේම ව්‍යාප්ත වෙලා තිබෙන්නට ඕන. ඒ වගේම මේ වගේ පහත් ක්‍රියාවන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන ඒ පුද්ගලයන්ට ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම දැඩි දඬුවම් ලබා දෙන පද්ධතියක් අපි රටේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට ඕන. ඒ නිසා ආචාර්ය ධර්ම වලින් සපිරුණු උසස් ගුණාංග තිබෙන මිනිස් ජන සමාජයක් අපේ රටේ නිර්මාණය කිරීම උදෙසා අපි නිරන්තරයෙන්ම කැප වෙන්නට ඕන. ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ සමානාත්මතාවය හුදෙක් දේශපාලන ප්‍රකාශයකට සීමා කරන්නේ නැතුව ළමා අයිතීන් ආරක්ෂා කිරීම හුදෙක් ප්‍රවෘත්ති නිවේදනවලට ප්‍රවෘත්ති සාකච්ඡාවලට සීමා කරන්නේ නැතුව මේ සියල්ලක්ම මහ පොළොවේ කාන්තාවන් රැකබලා ගැනීම දූ දරුවන් ආරක්ෂා කිරීම මහ පොළොවේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන ක්‍රමවේදයක් අපේ රටේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට ඕන.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. We're going to move into our third question in the hard talk round. This is definitely a tough question, but a question that that have been seeking an answer for quite a while now. I'm going to Ambika. It's your turn.
Great. Thank you, Anuki, and good evening, Mr. Premadasa. I have two questions, so I will ask the first one, and after you answer, I will go to the second one. The first one is for women who have been historically, systemically, and structurally discriminated against. Public institutions that are independent and provide the means for women to seek remedies are important. In that context, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution that enabled the establishment of independent commission, of which the proposed National Commission of Women, which you mentioned in your election manifesto, is an example, is vital to long-term efforts to address women's concern. In the context of the pandemic, what we're witnessing now is also an erosion of democratic values and institutions, for instance, through the establishment of multiple presidential task forces, etc. In this context, what would you do to ensure that independent institutions are protected if there are any attempts to undermine them and or repeal the 19th Amendment to the Constitution?
I firmly believe that the establishment of a women's commission tasked with ensuring parity, equality among the sexes, establishing and protecting women's rights, eradicating all forms of marginalization and discrimination, all these issues, the plethora of issues that exist in the society today, the disparities have to be addressed. And those disparities have to be ameliorated. And all steps that are tasked with ameliorating these disparities have to be implemented within a specific time period. That is why I consider the establishment of a women's commission is of paramount importance. It's an immediate and urgent step that we have to implement. In addition to that, I firmly believe that the president of the country should immediately set up a task force with women's development in all its aspects as its quintessential objective. And under the leadership of the president, this task force, together with the Women's Commission, will be empowered to take all the necessary steps to ensure that there is no discrimination, there's gender parity, and all forms of marginalization are addressed. And the steps that are taken according to a specific timetable. Here again, I think we have experienced throughout our democratic political history, pronouncements, declarations, proclamations, trying to address this burning and important issue. However, at times I wonder whether one has confined themselves to pronouncements rather than implementing one's intentions through relevant changes in government policy, changes of acts of parliament, bringing in new acts and legislation, changing the various regulations in order to achieve these main objectives. So I would stress the importance of the establishment of a Women's Commission, and together with that, the establishment of a presidential task force on women, which addresses these major issues. You mentioned about the 19th Amendment, the institutions that were set up to promote good governance. Of course, we all who favored these democratic changes and transformations during the course of 2015 and 2016, we will strive to do our very best to ensure that these institutions are protected, but also such institutions become insulated from political and other sorts of interferences. That these institutions become independent bodies which gain the trust, faith, and credibility of the people of our country. I'm also concerned that these institutions should neither become platforms for political interference, and also they should also not become white elephants, which are dysfunctional and non-functional. Of course, I have to impress upon you the issues of protecting these vital institutions will all depend on the preferences, on the political proclivities of the electorate. If the electorate decides to support those political agendas that are catered towards protecting these good governance institutions, then it will be very much easier for us to ensure that these institutions act in the well-being and national interests of our country. But if the electorate decides to the contrary, it will be a very, very hard task for us if the electorate decides that we should be in opposition rather than be the governors of the country. Then the task of protecting these good governance institutions would be a difficult objective to achieve. Now, having said that, there was also a mention about the establishment of presidential task forces. I see no harm in establishing presidential task forces that are transparent, that are authentic, and that are articulated and formulated and set up for the purpose of achieving national objectives and national interests. Those task forces enable the head of state, the president of the country, to champion the cause of various constituencies in society. However, such task forces are not a substitute for democratic institutions to function. Rather, these task forces should act as a catalyst in improving the efficiency and delivery of services that are presently available. It should not act as an instrument for centralization and mobilization of governmental power.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Premadasa. Sorry, we might have to just
Sorry.
time
So
is up.
task forces, let me just summarize.
Sure,
So
sure.
task forces in itself are not inimical to society, but those task forces should act in conjunction act in partnership with the other institutions that exist within the democratic polity to ensure that there is efficient and efficacious delivery of government services, which is something that is lacking right now in our country.
Let me quickly go to the second question, which is also a bit important. We found that, Tamil and Muslim women in the North and East have suffered immensely due to the war. And now, even a decade following the end of the war, they continue to face numerous obstacles in their search for truth and justice, and also to rebuild their lives. And this has become increasingly worse in the context of the pandemic. While it's important to address violations they suffered, it's also related to addressing the root causes of the ethnic conflict. That is, that it's not possible to address the justice issues without addressing the fundamental causes of the ethnic conflict, such as discrimination, violence, which have historically been fueled by Sinhala Buddhist ethno-nationalism as well. So the failure to address this also increases inter-ethnic and inter-religious tensions, which become worse during times of crisis, such as the pandemic. So how would you address the root causes of the conflict? What kind of political solution would you propose or push for? And how would you address the justice issues, such as prosecution of offenders and also meeting the demands for truth of the families of the disappeared?
In the immediate aftermath of the war, approximately 7 days afterward, the then government accepted, under the presidency of His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, in a joint statement that was made together with Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, there was an acceptance of violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. So predicated upon that, there was an institution that was set up, the LLRC, Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. The then president openly stated that all the recommendations of the LLRC will be implemented to ensure that brotherhood, harmony, peace, reconciliation, and togetherness of our society will be established, and that we will eradicate all the symptoms that caused the civil strife and the war and the terrorism that ensued henceforth, that all the symptoms would be addressed in an open and transparent manner, and the seeds of conflict and insurrection that was sown at that time will be addressed, and we will not provide in the future any other contextual situation that would promote another insurgency that would in turn lead to terrorism. Now, you mentioned extremism on one side. I think we have to be very fair that whenever issues that are of concern to various groups within society, I think we always have to adopt the democratic process of change. So the extremism that you talk about did not exist in one side. It existed on both sides. And we have to be cognizant of that. So when we have a balanced approach, when we approach this issue with some balance, we have to approach this subject in a non-discriminatory manner without bringing in ethnicity, religious persuasions, and any other differences that exist in Sri Lankan society. When we approach this subject devoid of that, I think we will be able to do justice by the people of the Northeast and also by the people of the whole country. We all accept that during the 30 years of conflict, there was polarization within our society. The conclusion of the war gave an excellent opportunity for the governors to take an overarching approach in order to settle the social, economic, and political issues faced by the various groups within our society. That was not done. It was a brilliant opportunity that was available to the then administration to take the high moral ground in order to provide a permanent solution for the people within one country, within a unitary state, with adequate devolution of power within that unitary state, with adequate political, social, and economic empowerment of the communities that exist. But that government adopted, rather than uniting the country, they adopted a methodology of marginalization and discrimination of those various ethnic and religious groupings. So I think we have to be very open-minded, non-discriminatory, extremely balanced, and very authentic when we are embarking on a new progressive approach towards peace and reconciliation. We have to heal the wounds. Wounds will not be healed by making glorified political statements. That would be detrimental to that process. One has to accept the realities that have existed throughout independent democratic Sri Lanka. And we have to go beyond the democratic history, way back to the colonial past, learn lessons from history, and move on as a true democratic, progressive motherland, a motherland that espouses unity among all religious and ethnic groupings, that provides extra support for those who have suffered from the war effort. Civilians in all our society who have been subjected to terrorism and totalitarianism. We have to ensure that we adopt a modern approach, not merely to address their economic circumstances. We have to address their social and political needs, their aspirations that can be fulfilled within one motherland, within one country, within one nation state. There's absolutely no obstacle for the Sinhalese, the Tamils and the Muslims, the Burghers and various other denominations in our society to work together. Absolutely no obstacle. But we have to leave the political baggage of olden day political thinking, the archaic and parochial political viewpoints, and we have to have a more people-oriented, progressive, advanced approach to address the problems that you raise. And I, for one, am willing to make all the sacrifices necessary to achieve that national objective, which no government up to now have been able to achieve in a comprehensive manner.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. We're actually going to move into our second round of discussions. We're calling this the rapid fire round. And what we're going to do is we're going to run through a couple of very important topics, and the panelists will be posing questions to Mr. Premadasa. Before we move on to round two, I'd like to just rehash the housekeeping points that I raised earlier on. First, please do not include any hate speech in your comments or your questions. You can send in your questions via the comment boxes on the live streams, but please note that hate speech will not be tolerated. Secondly, this platform nor this video can be used for election campaigning purposes. This is a completely content-driven conversation. And also, I'd like to remind the panelists and the speaker of time limits. We are time-bound, so each panelist gets 3 minutes to ask a question, and the speaker gets 5 minutes. I will be interrupting you when your time limit is up. This is in the interest of time so that we can discuss as much as we can given a very small time period. So moving on to round two, the first topic that we're going to tackle is female labor force participation in Sri Lanka. You may already know this, only 1 in 3 women go to work in Sri Lanka, and there are some very important questions and concerns that need to be raised. So Amitha, I'm going to move over to you first.
Thanks, Anuki. My question is about textile workers in the apparel sector. Textiles are about 50% of Sri Lanka's exports, and apparel sector employs over 250,000 women. Due to COVID-19, about 30% of these jobs in that sector may be cut as orders are cancelled in major markets like the US. Workers in free trade zones don't have unemployment allowances, minimum wages, or decent boarding houses. And according to the Dabindu collection, when the government imposed a curfew, those who migrated to the free trade zones found themselves stranded. They didn't have money on hand to buy rations, and some were not issued curfew passes or any financial assistance from the Grama Seva. So sometimes, if they wanted to go home, their salaries were even withheld from them. I am interested in learning from you what you think Sri Lanka can do to improve our social security and the working conditions for garment sector workers. And relatedly, how do you plan to fund such programs or policies given the precarious economic situation that Sri Lanka currently finds herself in?
I must respectfully request the moderator to allow me some leverage in answering this question. I shall strive to the best of my ability not to make political statements. But unfortunately, when we are talking of management of the COVID-19 issue, especially its impact on the working class of our country, I think actually the government has had an approach that is very ad hoc, spur of the moment, reactionary program in addressing this issue. Let me emphasize the fact that we as an opposition, both in January and February, 24th of January and 5th of February, to be very specific, we brought to the attention of the government at that time the emerging crisis, the issues that we might have to face. So the administration had ample time to strategize a comprehensive program to face up to the COVID-19 emergency. Unfortunately, the administration was not too interested in devising a comprehensive anti-COVID strategy that entailed providing an adequate fiscal stimulus to the economy, but rather they were primarily preoccupied with a political program that was aimed at having elections at the earliest possible time with a view to achieving a 2/3 majority. Now that's the sad truth. Because of the fact that the majority portion of their time and energies were dedicated towards achieving these twin objectives. One, having an early election. Two, achieving a 2/3 majority. The administration was preoccupied with the provision of short-term benefits. So there were various deductions in taxes, relaxation in tax policy, which resulted in a decrease in state income, in government income to the tune of over 600 billion rupees. Thereby the country was entrapped in its fiscal and monetary policy. The government policy resulted in restricting the freedom to maneuver when it came to facing the COVID-19 crisis. We were both in a fiscal policy and a monetary policy trap. Since we did not have enough room to maneuver, the government went on a money printing binge. Monies that were printed, I would have no problem with money printing as long as those funds were injected to the specific sectors, the apparel sector that was mentioned in this question. But the money printing binge was primarily utilized not for productive purposes, not for boosting the economy, but for utilization of funding absolutely ridiculous projects. Projects such as the enhancement of sand duning of the western coastal region, amounting to 890 odd million rupees. Plans to build another cricket stadium, the new highway projects, the expressways, and so on and so forth. I think we should have focused on a fiscal stimulus package that would have helped in the interim these workers, the factory workers, those whose sacrifices enabled Sri Lanka to obtain foreign exchange reserves. That was not looked at all. Just the other day, we heard the fact that the government had provided salaries for 3 months for these factory workers, which was not a credible and truthful statement. So, as far as the garment factory workers are concerned, together with other factory workers and the workers in the private sector, they were shabbily treated. Just look at the furlough program in the United Kingdom. The UK government intervened to provide 80% of the salaries. It was called the furlough program.
Sorry, Mr. Premadasa, I might have to rush you on that.
Okay, enunciated by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So we are in a fiscal trap. We are in a corner. But the way that I would suggest in terms of resuscitating the economy is for more increase of the money supply to the various sectors, especially the industrial sector. The factory workers' salaries have to be taken care of for the next 6 months by government intervention up until the world economic situation gets back to normal. So the factories will, start operationalizing at full strength. So that would be my solution. Inject more money, more government funds, increase in the money supply to the vital sectors, the main ingredients of national economic growth.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. Sorry to have to interrupt. We're just getting a host of audience questions as well. So we want to navigate this so that we leave as much time for audience questions and concerns. We're going to move into the second question, moving on from free trade zones, and the conversation on that also raises important concerns for women in the informal sector and the impact of COVID-19 on them. So Ambika, over to you with that question.
Thanks, Anuki. What we have seen during the pandemic, Mr. Premadasa, is that women working in the informal sector are severely affected by the loss of income and pushed further into poverty, which adversely affects all aspects of their life, including making them more vulnerable to exploitation and violence. We see this in particular in urban areas, highlighting the fact that we've ignored the issue of urban poverty. The recent incident in Maligawatha is one example of how the urban poor, and women especially, have been economically impacted by COVID. In your manifesto, you mentioned the need to revise labor laws, regulations, introduction of an insurance scheme, etc. Can you elaborate on the specific changes we have to make, both in the short term as well as in the long term, to provide protections for women in the informal sector? And also, how do we bring them from the informal sector into the formal sector?
I think it's vital and important to establish adequate government regulations in order to protect the economic and social rights of the women who are employed in the informal sector. I think they are discriminated, they are badly treated, the minimum wage standards are not abided by various institutions and even households. I think there is no proper regulatory process that ensures that their rights and their needs are protected. So I think there is a very big need for adequate legislation to regularize this particular sector, establish the legal framework that is necessary to protect the workers in the informal sector. And I also believe that we have to structure a scheme whereby the woman in the household is given a greater role in the economic development process. We are all aware and we all recognize the responsible role that the woman in the family performs in a family household. We have all heard of as to how the newly industrialized countries such as Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, how they jump-started their economies and they became economically strong. That is through the establishment of high savings rates. If we can ensure an incentivized scheme whereby the woman of the household gets involved in a supplementary income generating process. Here I'm talking about both the urban and rural woman, and also ensure that they have a pivotal role in encouraging the savings of the household, because we all know the financial discipline of the woman by and large is greater than the man of the household. I don't mean to make a discriminatory statement, but that's a factual truth. So if we can encourage the woman of the household to become more involved in the income generation activity, make them partners of economic progress, and also have a proper legal framework to protect the woman as an economic stakeholder in the income generation process, I think we will have a much better economic situation in the country as a whole. Just the other day, one of the main World Bank officials stated that if we have greater women's participation in the labor force in our country, we would be adding a further hundreds of billions of rupees into our GDP. And we should also encourage the labor force participation of women too, provide the necessary security in terms of legal security, assurances, and ensure that the woman also has a constructive role to play in the economic development process. I think it will add to our GDP, and certainly the woman's role in the economic process has to be enhanced, and her rights has to be protected by none other than legislation and providing new regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. In the conversation of, I think it's apt that you spoke about how women can be economic stakeholders in the wealth generation process and in their contribution to GDP. So migrant workers are considered the backbone of our economy, and we're grateful for their contribution to our GDP. We're grateful for their contribution, but their treatment, we are discriminatory in our treatment to them. And that's a question that Shreen is going to pose now.
Thanks, Anuki. Mr. Premadasa, what is your position on getting back our migrant workers who are stranded in the Middle Eastern countries? Particularly, there are lots of women who are stranded there. On regular basis, we get calls. They are in a very cramped spaces. And also you would have seen in these days in media, some of the ministers and authorities are labeling these women and men workers as COVID imports and also explosives. Is it the state responsibility to get them back here as soon as possible and give them the health care and the recovery that they need? Or should we just leave it to the receiving countries?
As I said before, the government had ample time to look at all aspects of COVID eradication strategy. They should have strategized from January onward. Right now, government policy, as I see it, unfortunately, are mere knee-jerk reactions to issues that are developing. I am grateful for the migrant workers. Their sacrifices, their toiling has resulted in huge swaths of foreign exchange reserves that is basically allowing Sri Lankan economy to survive right now. And you see, we should provide them with the recognition, the same recognition that politicians give during times of political activity, during times of elections. If I may remind you, the migrant workers were most renownedly labeled as Rataviruas, the victorious warriors who are providing us with foreign exchange reserves. But that was confined to the election period. Now these, the warriors, the champions of providing foreign exchange reserves automatically became human COVID bombs. That's a very, very selfish and self-centered way to address this problem. Of course, we as a country are responsible for Sri Lankans, irrespective of caste, ethnicity, religion, and their workplace, whether it's domestic or whether it's abroad. There is a moral and an ethical duty incumbent upon us to ensure their safe return. While that should be the policy, we should put into place necessary precautions, checking procedures, have centers which can keep them quarantined with proper facilities and with proper benefits to ensure that the foreign workers are taken care of and them coming into Sri Lanka does not entail an increase in the number of COVID patients. I mean, you can have a balanced approach. But one thing is for certain, we have to take care of our people. Bangladesh has managed to do so. Philippines have managed to do so. India has managed to do so. I spoke with the Kuwaiti ambassador in Sri Lanka with this regarding this problem. He said, if other countries can take care of their citizens, why can't we? Why can't Sri Lanka do the same? We cannot do the same because we don't have a comprehensive policy. These are all knee-jerk reactions by the government. I'm sorry to say that. Whenever problems crop up, they try to provide ad hoc solutions. That's not the way to go about doing public policy decision-making. Public policy decision-making entails and involves forecasting problems that may arise. And for such problems, all governments must formulate strategies, emergency programs to address those problems. So, whole of Sri Lanka is looking at an efficacious government, a government that is efficient and effective in delivering the services. So I think the government has to have a whole rethink about the way they go about doing business, the way they go about doing, implementing government policy. And certainly we have to take care of our brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers who are working in foreign land. They have been toiling for a tuppence in order to ensure that Sri Lanka's foreign exchange reserves thrive. And we cannot forget them. We cannot leave them behind.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. Speaking of strategy, we have a question from the audience, and I will read it out. Given the recent incident in Maligawatha, how would you ensure that the COVID-19 situation, urban poor women are provided with adequate social security and recovery options? Many of these women are in the informal sector and work as cleaners, cooks, domestic helpers, and caregivers. This type of work is not going to start immediately. What is your plan to ensure that they live a dignified life till normalcy returns? Is the question from Kala from Colombo 10.
First and foremost, we have to have an authentic social economic empowerment program that is targeted. We have to target our social protection programs. Ensure that the beneficiaries are people who are authentically poor, whether it's urban or rural. The social protection programs have to be non-politicized. You cannot have politicians coming in and dictating and defining those who are poor and those who are prosperous. Unfortunately, with the distribution of the 5,000 rupees subsidy, we had the local authority politician being made the main decision maker in the whole subsidy distribution process. So it's very important to ensure that the relevant government officials are empowered, are provided with the requisite mandate to ensure that the various social protection programs and subsidy programs are implemented in a very open, transparent, and truthful and authentic manner. And I think the Maligavat situation was a tragedy. That was a tragedy that was created by the existent urban poverty levels of women and households alike in our country. And I think because of the economic retardation that has taken place with COVID-19, we will have a further dip in economic activity, further lowering of the living standards of the people of our country, both urban and poor. And the government has to take immediate steps to formulate relief programs. We in the opposite side of the political aisle will also provide our fullest support, both in terms of ideas and in terms of policies. We ourselves have embarked upon various relief programs to help the poor, to help the people, to help the health sector. And I fervently believe that the opposition also has to take a very proactive role in helping and supporting government and non-governmental institutions in addressing this issue of poverty. But I sometimes wonder whether the public decision makers are fully aware of the ground situation. I think there's a huge discrepancy between what the decision makers are thinking and the ground level reality. And that is an alarming concern.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. We're going to move into the second topic in the rapid fire question round. And the second area of discussion will be protecting minority women's rights. Women have been advocating for the reform of the Muslim personal law for over 3 decades now, but there has been very little progress that has been made. Shreen, I'm going to move over to you to pose a question to that regard.
Thanks, Anuki. Mr. Premadasa, my question is, the Muslim women have been agitating for reform for a very long time, and because they are being discriminated compared to their sisters belonging to other faith in this country. And during your government, last government, there was substantial move forward in the reform processes. But even though the ultra-conservative and male-only religious and political leaders tried to hijack the process, however, there was a cabinet paper approved. Now with the cremation only law under COVID, we feel that if we ask for equal rights as our sisters belonging to other faith in this country, there is a grave danger of being forced to accept one country and one law policy. We have been articulating for reform, Mr. Premadasa, but not only for abolishing personal laws, because these laws acknowledge the diversity and pluralism in this country. How would you ensure that we continue to engage with your party and with you, probably as a prime minister or an opposition leader in the near future on this much needed reform? We have never heard your position on this issue, even though the last few years, MMDA, Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act reform has been one of the main topics among legislator. We have never heard you. So maybe this is an opportunity for you to tell us what would you do?
Well, I think one of the main reasons why I did not express my opinions is because I had certain reservations in terms of how policies arrived at, even during our government. I think it is very important that the reforms that you suggest has to achieve a positive fruition. Now, if we are to do that, if we are to do so, we have to follow a procedure that is that entails constructive discussion and policy debate. And we have to ensure that stakeholders are brought on board prior to implementing programs. I think from what I saw, how the processes went about, even during our government, the consensus building, the consultative processes, the discussion programs were few and far between. I don't think adequate time was provided for various parties for a prolonged period of discussions, because through discussions and consultation, we can arrive at positive compromises. And I think when far-reaching reform is much needed, it is important to agree upon a step-by-step process in order to achieve the ultimate goal. So my style of government would be consensus building, far-reaching consultations, inclusion rather than exclusion of groups. Through the adequate discussion processes, we will be able to arrive at a positive conclusion. And it may be that a step-by-step process is the order of the day to reach the ultimate target, the ultimate conclusion. So I can assure you that we will strive to achieve the major reforms that is being expounded within society, and we will have a time-targeted approach. We will establish credibility with all the stakeholders and have a very proactive and profound discussion, which will ensure that the stakeholders and the major constituent groupings will have their say and will try to arrive at a compromise, which will ultimately lead towards comprehensive reform.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. There's a reminder to the audience that they can send in their questions via the comment box. And if the questions are relevant to the topic that we're discussing right now, we'll be taking up audience questions as well. So, Mr. Premadasa, we have a question from the audience, and that is, do you see the irony in the fact that in 2019, under the PM Ranil Wickremesinghe government, it was insisted that Muslim women cannot wear the face veil due to national security? And now for COVID-19, we're told everyone must wear face masks, but miraculously, it poses more threats to establishing national security. This is a question from Akshay from Colombo.
Right. I think in terms of issues of national security, national security does not entail mere military security. National security has a variety of aspects: economic, social, political, military, and also another aspect which involves a harmonious relationship, societal harmony within all ethnic and religious groups. That is also a part of national security. I think right now there is this semblance of security that is being created by the change of administration that has taken place. There was this view that during the previous administration, national security was not given its due recognition. I think to some extent, that conclusion is somewhat correct because it was perceived in society that inadequate military security steps were taken during our administration, but we did as an administration promote harmony, brotherhood, cohesion among various religious and ethnic groupings. But there were political opponents who were propagating various racist themes that basically sabotaged that process. Now, as far as the issues that were mentioned, yes, I do agree there's a lot of irony in it. I do agree with the cynical manner, quite rightly, in which the question was posed. It is an irony, and it is political hypocrisy. This is the very political hypocrisy that we as a progressive political force will strive to eliminate. I think it's very, very important that when we arrive at decisions, that those decisions has to be justifiable, has to be evidence-based decisions, rather than knee-jerk reactions based on emotion and sentiment. So I think the whole decision-making structure in government has to have a sea change. We have to look at issues anew. We have to eradicate racism, religious and ethnic extremism, terrorism from our society. In order to do so, military security steps alone would not suffice. We have to address the social, religious, ethnic, economic, political, and all other aspects which define national security. If we arrive at sound decisions by exploring all these areas, I think the political hypocrisy and the ironies that exist in various decisions that are taken by governors will be eliminated in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. So we're going to move on to our next topic. On the topic of decision making, we're going to explore female political participation in Sri Lanka. Soraya, over to you.
Thank you, Anoki, and thank you, Mr. Sajith Premadasa. My question comes from a different space. More than asking you what you will be doing and what you can do, I'm going to pose a question which puts the burden on you to empower us women to do it. Because today, I think there are lots of people, we have walked into a restaurant and we are savoring the menu. We have not ordered the food and we have not savored the food. So we want to move from that paradigm and see that the river is dirty and we want to get into the river and clean the river. So this question comes from that space as an activist. So today, I remember the words of my mentor who asked me once, Soraya, what is the richest place in the world? And I was stuck for an answer, and he said, it was the cemetery. That is where people with gifts, talents, and abilities, unused, untapped, underused, they're buried there. Then I think the second richest place is our religious spaces, where women's talents, gifts, and abilities are unutilized, underutilized, and untapped. So this question comes from how can we empower women in our religious and community spaces? If you recall, after the sad and tragic Easter Sunday attacks, jihadi terror attacks, on the 26th of April, we had the Diyawana Declaration with 24 key steps to achieve permanent peace and security. And the number one recommendation was to promote interfaith dialogue with relevant specialists to be regularly carried out at urban and community levels to reduce suspicion, fear, and conflict. These are foundational challenges we have in this country. And when we look at the religious space, there are 4,300 religions in this world. Top 5 religions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, they are all in practice in our country. 84% of the majority population identifies with a religion. And every day in Sri Lanka, somebody is performing a rite or a ritual in the name of their religion. But sadly today, in the 21st century, women are dominated by patriarchal structures. 3,000 Buddhist nuns are lamenting, begging for a national ID card. Muslim women are not allowed to enter their religious spaces. Their scholarship and their leadership is non-existent. Oppression, dominance, and violence based on religion are rampant because of these patriarchal structures. So today, if we had women, Buddhist nuns, we might hear a new dharma, one that is embroiled in compassion and collaboration and not conflict and competition. Today, if our Muslim women were engaged in their religious spaces, we might not have had experienced the Easter Sunday attacks, or we might have mitigated the attacks. So when we're talking about a new world order, we need to bring about dramatic change, a thought and balance of power replacing the old norms. So in that context, my question to you is, the question of women is a priority. It cannot be a secondary issue anymore, because women are treated like perpetual minors in our religious spaces. So there is in any action, there is the perpetrator, there's the victim, and there's the witness. And I believe very strongly the onus and the burden and the responsibility is on the witness. So many of us are witnessing this disenfranchisement of women. So my question to you is, Mr. Premadasa, in a modern global progressive world, what progressive steps can you provide for us, like interfaith community centers, women-led religious spaces? What can you provide for us moving forward? Thank you.
I agree with your contention that interfaith dialogue does act as a positive catalyst in propagating social harmony, religious and ethnic harmony. Now, as far as politicians, decision makers, legislators interfering into or intruding into reforms within religions, I think that's not the place for politicians. Politicians cannot intrude or intervene into religions and to how they are practiced. However, the issue that you raised is of value. The issue that you raised is a new trend and could be pivotal in the New World Order. Such changes and reforms have to be initiated, propagated, and supported within those respective religions. We cannot and we must not legislate, bring in legislation that interfere into present-day religions and religious activities. But this is not to preclude or put aside your contention. Your contention has validity. your contention has credibility. However, how we go about doing those reforms and changes, the transformational approaches, I think these have to be championed by progressive individuals within those religious structures. So I hate to disappoint you. I am not in favor of governments legislating and interfering into religions or religious practices. But I see a lot of soundness in your suggestion, a lot of credibility in your proposal. It would not be a very easy task. As I said before, parochialism and archaic thinking is very much prevalent in society today. So you're suggesting a very path-breaking approach, which I believe would have immense obstacles. But I think such changes have to be supported and initiated by progressive thinking within those religions.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. Mr. Premadasa, that raises a question for me that I sort of want to follow up on pose also, is that while, you suggest that politicians don't get involved in religion, this works both ways as well. And something that you see in Sri Lanka is the lack of a separation of religion and the state. Do you then suggest that forward, religions play a smaller role in navigating state policy and state governance?
Well, it is very important to consult, to obtain ideas, views and opinions. That does not mean that religion or religious leaders per se run government. Consultation with religious leaders and having adequate knowledge about religion and principles, those are part and parcel of considering issues in public policy decision making. There's absolutely no harm in seeking the opinions of religious leaders of all religious persuasions. That enables the policymaker to a vast spectrum of opinions, which is very, very fruitful in constructive decision making. So I see no harm in consulting with religious leaders, seeking their advice and opinion. But at the end of the day, the ultimate decision that you arrive at is based on sound opinion, not just one religion nor one religious leader dictating the way to go about doing it. I see religious consultation as an important and integral part of decision making. It has its value, but it will not be the sole consideration, the preeminent, omnipotent force that would decide public policy.
Sure. Thank you. We're going to move on to another important concern that Indika is going to raise about COVID-19 and the participation of women in decision-making roles. Indika, over to you.
Sajith මැතිතුමනි ඔබතුමා මින් පෙර සඳහන් කරා ඇත්තටම මෙවැනි කොවිඩ් වසංගතය වගේ තත්ත්වයන් මර්ධන ක්‍රියාවලියකදී බොහොම උපාය මාර්ගික ක්‍රමවේදයන් වල අවශ්‍යතාවය සහ ඒ වැදගත්කම් ආය අනිත් පැත්තෙන් ඔබතුමා සඳහන් කරා තීරණ ගැනීම සහ මේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති සම්පාදනයේහිලා කාන්තාවගේ දායකත්වයේ තියෙන වැදගත්කම් ඒ වගේම අනිත් පැත්තෙන් නැවතත් ඔබතුමා සඳහන් කරා ගෘහ මට්ටමේ ජීවනෝපාය මාර්ගවල ඉඳලා ආර්ථික සංවර්ධන සමස්ත ආර්ථික සංවර්ධන ක්‍රියාවලිය තුළ කාන්තාවගේ දායකත්වයේ වැදගත්කම. මේ සියලු කාරණා අතරේ මේ කොවිඩ් වසංගතය සහ ඒහා සමාන වෙනත් ස්වාභාවික හෝ වෙනයම් ගැටුම්කාරී අරුද්ධකාරී තත්ත්වයන් තුළ ඇතිීමේ හෝ මර්ධන ක්‍රියාවලීන් තුළ විශේෂයෙන්ම අවශ්‍යතා ප්‍රමුඛාකරණය කර ගැනීම, ප්‍රතිලාභීන් ලයිස්තුගත කිරීම, ඒ වගේම සහන හෝ සුබසාධන බෙදා හැරීමේ ක්‍රියාවලියන් තුළ කාන්තාවන්ගේ විශේෂයෙන්ම උපදෙස් නොපැතීම හෝ උපදෙස් පැතීම අඩුකම නිසා විශේෂයෙන් කාන්තාවන්ට සහ ගැහැණු ළමයින්ට අපි විශ්වාස කරන්නේ නැති තරම් අකටයුතු අසාධාරණකම් සහ වෙනස් කොට සැලකීම් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි කාන්තාවගේ සහභාගීත්වය මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයන් තුළ නොමැතිකම හෝ අඩුකම නිසා විශේෂයෙන්ම කාන්තා මූලික පවුල්, ඒ වගේම වැන්දබු සහ ඒ වගේම ආබාධ සහිත කාන්තා සහ ගැහැණු ළමයි වගේ වියපත් කාන්තාවන් වගේ කාන්තාවන්ට වැඩිපුර අසාධාරණකම් සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ ප්‍රතිලාභ ලබා ගැනීමේදී අපේ රටේ අපි කිහිප දෙනෙක් මින් පෙර සඳහන් කරා වගේ මේ අපේ රටේ පවතින අපේ සමාජයේ පවතින පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යමය යම් භාවිතාවන් නිසා, උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් සහන හෝ එහෙම නැත්නම් වන්දි හෝ වේයනම් සුබසාධන ප්‍රතිලාභ ගොඩාක් වෙලාවට හිමිකාරත්වයේ දරන්නේ අපේ පවතින ගෘහමූලික සංකල්පය උඩ පිරිමියෙක්. අපේ කිසිම පනතක, කිසිම කෙටුම්පතක, කිසිම දෙයක සඳහන් නුනට සෑම කුටුම්බයකම එහෙම නැත්නම් සෑම නිවසකම ගෘහමූලිකයා පිරිමියා විය යුතුයි කියලා. මේක නිසංගයෙන්ම ස්වභාවයෙන්ම සමාජයේ බාර දීලා ඉවරයි. මේ ගෘහමූලික කම පිරිමි. ඒ නිසා මේ කියන COVID-19 වසංගත මර්ධන ක්‍රියාවලිය තුළ මේ අවශ්‍යතා තක්සේරුකරණය, ප්‍රතිලාභීන් තෝරා ගැනීම, ප්‍රතිලාභීන් ලයිස්තුගත කිරීම, ප්‍රතිලාභ බෙදා හැරීම සහ එවැනි ක්‍රියාමාර්ග නියාමනය කිරීම සහ පසුවිපරම් කිරීම වැනි තත්ත්වයන්හි දැනට පවතින කාන්තා නියෝජනය පිළිබඳ ඔබතුමා සෑම හිමකට පත් වෙනවා.
මම ආරම්භයේදීම එක දෙයක් කියන්න කැමතියි. ඒක මම නොපැකිලිව නොපසුබටව කියන්න කැමතියි. විශේෂයෙන්ම ගෘහමූලික පවුලක විනය, අරපිරිමැස්ම, පවුලේ අවශ්‍යතාවය, දූදරුවන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවය, පවුලේ වැදගත් ඉලක්ක, මේ කරුණු කාරණා පිළිබඳ සාකච්ඡා කිරීමේදී මම මගේ අත්දැකීම වන්නේ එතනදී පවුලේ ගෘහණිය මාතාව පුරුෂ පාර්ශවයට වැඩිය ඉහළ තැනක් දරනවා. ඒකයි මම මීට පෙරත් කිව්වේ රටක් දියුණු වන්නට නම් එක මූලික මූලධර්මයක් වන්නේ රටක ඉතිරි කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය වර්ධනය කිරීම. ඉතිරි කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය වර්ධනය කරපු ජපානය, දකුණු කොරියාව, තායිලන්තය, මැලේසියාව, සිංගප්පූරුව වැනි රටවල් වල ඉහළ ඉතිරි කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය නිසා ඒ රටවල් ශීඝ්‍ර ආර්ථික දියුණුවක් ලැබුවා. ඒ අයට කිව්වා ආසියානු ව්‍යාග්‍රේන් කියලා. ඒෂියන් ටයිගර් ඉකොනොමීස් කියලා කිව්වේ. ඒ ඇත්තට මේ තත්ත්වයට ආවේ මේ ඉතිරි කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිශතයේ වර්ධනය නිසා. රටක් හැටියට බැලුවොත් අපේ රටේ ඉතිරි කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය ඉතාමත්ම දුර්වල තැනක තමයි වසර ගණනාවක් පුරාවටම ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මේ කාන්තාව, ගෘහණිය ඉතාමත්ම අරපිරිමැස්මෙන් පවුලේ අවශ්‍යතාවය බලා ගන්නා වූ ප්‍රධාන සාධකයේ හැටියට මම හිතන්නේ පුරුෂ පාර්ශ්වයේ මාත් එක්ක තරහ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. බහුතර අවස්ථාවන් වලදී ඒ පවුලේ ගෘහණිය ඒ සත්කාරය මැනවින් ඉටු කරනවායි කියන එක මම නොබියව කියනවා. ඒ නිසාම රටක ආර්ථික ක්‍රියාවලිය තුළ එපමණක් නොවේ දේශපාලනික, සමාජ සුබසාධන සහ අනෙකුත් ක්‍රියාවලියන් තුළ ඒ තීන්දුව තීරණ ගැනීමේ ව්‍යුහය තුළ, ඒ තීන්දුව තීරණ ගැනීමේ යටිතලය තුළ කාන්තාවට සුවිශේෂී තැනක් හිමි විය යුතුයි කියන එක මම තරයේ විශ්වාස කරනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම කාන්තා මූලික පවුල්වල තිබෙන්නා වූ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්න අපි හොඳින් හඳුනනවා. ඒක රට පුරාවටම තිබෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒ වගේම විශේෂයෙන්ම උතුරු නැගෙනහිර බල ප්‍රදේශවල තිබෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. මම විශ්වාස කරනවා කාන්තා මූලික පවුල්වලට ආවේනික වුණු විශේෂිත වූ සමාජ සුබසාධන සමාජ ආරක්ෂණ වැඩපිළිවෙලක වැදගත්කමක් තිබෙනවා. මම විශ්වාස කරනවා අපේ තිබෙන සීමා සහිත මූල්‍ය සම්පත කාන්තාව වෙත ඒ ආකාරයෙන් යොමු කළ විට ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම රටෙත් දරු පරපුරෙත් අනාගතය පිළිබඳව කරන ඉමහත් ප්‍රගතිශීලී ආයෝජනයක් හැටියට මම ඒක දකිනවා. ඒ වගේම රටක් පාලනය කිරීමේදී තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේදී කාන්තා සහභාගීත්වය සක්‍රීය ප්‍රායෝගික කාන්තා සහභාගීත්වය අතිවැදගත්. මොකද පුරවැසියන්ගේ මූලාරම්භයේදී ඒ රැකවරණය ආරක්ෂණය විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ රටේ දරු පරපුරටත් මතු පරපුරටත් ඒ සියලු දෙනාගේම ජීවන ගමනේ ආරම්භයේදී ඒ මාතෘත්වය ඒ වගේම ඒ මාතාවගේ ඒ කාන්තාවගේ ඒ රැකවරණය ඒ උණුසුම ඒ ශක්තිය ඒක වචන වලින් විග්‍රහ කරන්නට බෑ. ඒ නිසා මම දකිනවා ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අපේ තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේ ක්‍රමවේදය තුල ලොකු ඌනතාවයක් තියෙනවා. ඩිසිෂන් මේකින් ඩෙෆිසිට් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ඩෙෆිසිට් එක තමයි මාතෘත්වයට මාතාවන්ට ඒ කාන්තා පාර්ශ්වයට තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේ ප්‍රවාහයන් වලදී ඒ සහභාගීත්වයට වැඩි ඉඩක් නැහැ. ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අපි අදහස් කරගෙන තිබෙනවා ඒ ක්‍රමවේදය සහ මුලින්ම වෙනස් කරලා උඩු යටිකුරු කරලා හැකියාව තිබෙන කුසලත්වයේ තිබෙන නිපුණත්වයේ තිබෙන දක්ෂතාවයේ තිබෙන කාන්තා පරපුරට තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේ ප්‍රවාහයන්හි විශේෂිත වූ කාර්යභාරයක් ඉෂ්ට කිරීම සඳහා වැඩි සහභාගීත්වයක් ඉදිරි කාලයේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න. ඒක අපි බොහොම තරයේ ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමති. එය අපේ ස්ථිරසාර ඉලක්කයක් හැටියට අපි අදහස් කරගෙන සිටිනවා.
බොහොම ස්තුතියි.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. Speaking of representation, we are going to move into the next question now, and it's with regards to the 25% quota that was placed on the political participation of women to ensure representation. Amita, over to you with that question. Amita, you're actually on mute.
Mr. Premadasa, I actually want to bring up two different but related pledges that were contained in your manifesto when you ran for president. The first is a pledge to improve female representation in politics through the introduction of a 25% quota for women, both on the national list and a 25% quota for members of parliament. This obviously builds on progress that the previous government made in introducing quotas for women in local government. I was wondering if, you would be maintaining that principle of improving gender diversity, and if you, if that was on your mind when you provided nominations, and what you will be doing to encourage women to participate in politics in the future. The second question related to, again, a pledge that you made in your manifesto, is related to the representation of women in the armed forces and in the police services. Some women activists in Sri Lanka have argued that having female-only police stations or actually a greater number of police officers can actually help women in reporting incidents related to sexual harassment. I was wondering, because you have mentioned that you would like to improve diversity in the armed forces and the police services, whether this actually includes gender diversity and what steps you're thinking of introducing to that end.
I would respectfully request the moderator to consider the queries as two questions and provide me adequate time to respond. Now, as far as 25% permanent representation for women in the local authority system of government was a great achievement, a tremendous achievement of our regime, our administration. However, there was an opportunity cost involved. The women sector got a permanent representation at the cost of youth candidates being allotted their requisite 40% in the local authority candidate list. If I may remind you, the Youth Commission, which was set up to examine the two youth insurrections of 1971 and 1988-89, recommended that there be a 40% representation of youth in the local authority candidate lists. And this was a permanent allocation, without which the nomination lists would get rejected. So while applauding the tremendous achievement of allocating 25% permanent membership for women in local authority membership, I would also add the fact that the loss that took place, that is the allocation that was provided for the youth, the loss of 40% representation, it's an issue that has to be addressed, and it's an issue that has to be addressed and provided with a quick solution. Now, having said that, while you're quite correct that we stipulated the various percentages when providing nominations at parliamentary and provincial elections, I must confess I have not been able to abide by the standards set by my presidential manifesto, purely because our political movement had a very quick beginning. We did not have the luxury of time to go through a comprehensive nomination process. Here again, I'm sorry, I have to just talk a bit of politics. You know that we as a political party, we were to go into the election as an alliance together with the United National Party, but with the various issues that went on, I'm not going to elaborate those, then it will become very political. There was a bifurcation that took place. So you had the United National Party putting up its list, and Samagi Jana Balawegi Alliance, which was formulated at the insistence of the United National Party Working Committee. We had to formulate our lists. So with this issue, we had inadequate time to recruit and encourage and induce adequate women candidates to our lists. And I must confess, our lists are quite poor in terms of women's participation. But I will assure you, from here on, when we have a decent interval to progress as a political alliance, we shall strive to have a much better participation, and we'll strive to abide by the high standards that we set by the presidential manifesto. So I must confess, I have not been able to do so at the parliamentary nomination process, but that shortcoming will be quickly addressed in the forthcoming provincial and local authority elections. That's answering the first part of your question. If you can just remind me, what was the second aspect?
Sure. So the second question was related to the armed forces and the
Right.
police services?
Right. No, I think recruitment to the armed forces, I think we should allow women participants in the armed forces and the police. I think we have seen a lot of women participants in the security forces and in the police force, but I think it's inadequate. And I would certainly encourage greater women participation, both in the armed forces and police. And we have seen both domestic and in the international arena, the tremendous performance of female members in police forces and in the security forces who have excelled in achieving their tasks. And I would have no hesitation or inhibition at all in encouraging greater women participation in the security forces and the police alike. In fact, I think it would be a breath of fresh air. I think promoting such diversity will ensure that the functioning of the respective forces would become more efficient, more transparent, and less discriminatory. And I would also say that we will have better management of the security apparatus, the police apparatus, if we have a better influx of females coming into the forces. So I would certainly have no inhibitions or no objections to encouraging this. In fact, we will strive to encourage greater women participation in the police and the security apparatus alike.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. With regards to political representation, Shreen, you had a question, a quick one. Shreen, you're on mute.
Mr. Premadasa, I know for your presidential election, lots of your party women, many of them are my friends too, worked very hard on your campaign platform when you contested for presidential election. I want to know how many of them are in the decision-making level of your political party, the Central Bureau or the Politburo or the High Command. How many of them are there?
Well, right now, we have not specified the appointments as such. We have the chairman of the party and the general secretary, and in fact, virtually the whole swath of ladies are involved in the decision-making process, specifically as far as women development policies are concerned, and in the other areas. And we are, once again, when I go to answer this question, there may be a teeny weeny bit of politics involved. We are trying to encourage, incentivize and induce professionalism in our decision-making processes. We are encouraging talented, educated, and also representatives of all sectors, big and small, to become active participants in our policy formulation programs. So we have encouraged gender parity. On some occasions, we have female superiority in the decision-making groupings, and we are very happy about it. And once we conclude the electoral processes and the parliamentary results are out, we will have a very comprehensive rethink on how greater women participation in the major decision-making processes within our alliance can be cemented and established. So right now, we don't have any formal decision-making process as such. We have not included any new ones into the processes. It's basically the chairman of the party and the general secretary getting all the stakeholders into these decision-making groups, and there is adequate female participation in those decision-making forums.
Sure. Mr. Premadasa, we're now going to move on to some questions from the audience. We are running close to our end time, so I urge that we keep our questions and our answers concise in the interest of time. So we have a question from Aranya in Colombo. What is your opinion about women being left out of the newly appointed presidential task forces?
As I said before, of course, in appointing task forces, suitability is a big criterion. And there are large numbers of suitable ladies in our society with the adequate acumen to become members of these task forces. And I certainly think that I would have liked to have seen more ladies participating in the presidential task forces. There's no doubt about that.
Sure, sure. We're moving on to our next question. This is from Naina from Panadura. Why did you champion menstrual hygiene during your presidential campaign, and what do you plan to do about it in the future?
Why did I champion the subject, right? Well, I like to think of myself as a non-traditional politician, a person who thinks out of the box, a person who will not be imprisoned or become a hostage of old-fashioned, parochial, archaic thinking, subjects that are described as taboo, or subjects that are highly stigmatized. I fervently believe that I, as a person, and we as a political movement, we are encouraging longevity of life. We will propose and implement all programs and use and utilize all policy instruments to encourage long life. We observed in our research that when it comes to MHM, that's menstrual hygiene management, Sri Lanka lags far behind. In recognizing this important topic, I took the plunge of openly championing the provision of adequate MHM items that would promote and enhance the health and well-being of women and girls who come into this particular category. I believe the numbers are around 4.2 odd million. I'm not too sure about how those calculations were done, but many an expert have expressed the veracity of these figures. So basically, I champion the cause because I think this was an issue that was ignored and neglected by many an astute politicians and national leaders. They dared not discuss these subjects, and these types of subjects and topics were stigmatized and shelved, and they became confined to the cabinets and the waste bins of policy decision makers of our country. I think I took the plunge, and I fearlessly propounded the necessity for government intervention in providing the requisite MHM items free of charge, as they do so in Scotland. And I believe the Prime Minister of New Zealand has decided, or is in the process of contemplating, the provision of MHM items free of charge to school-going girls. Because this issue has a tremendous impact on a variety of sectors: health, education, the industrial sector, and it has an impact even on national output. There's a direct correlation. And I think we have taken the bold step of talking about the issue, of espousing a cause, and of fearlessly declaring our intentions. And I want to state this to our supporters and our detractors, that we are single-minded in our determination to provide these items FOC, free of charge. Once we attain power, of course, the people of the country has to decide.
We're going to move on to another question that comes from Tharuki in Colombo. She says, if you become the Prime Minister, what will you do to ensure protection of female undergraduates on campuses, given the dangerous escalation of violent ragging of freshers? This can lead to rape and suicide and girls leaving university.
Well, I want to be very, very open about this subject. Violent ragging will be banned. And those are criminal offenses, and they will be brought to book. I must specify it's violent ragging. So I also attended university. I mean, at a very human level, there were acceptable ragging that was done. I mean, that was done on a very humane level, and I would not have any problem with that. But the types of ragging that goes on in our university system right now, the majority of the ragging is totally unacceptable, and it's a criminal offense, and they will be brought to book. I say this in no uncertain terms.
Okay, thank you. We're entertaining another question. This is from Nirmala. She's listening in from London. She asks, will you be implementing the 13th Amendment? If not, why?
Of course, ever since the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord of, I believe, 1987, and the establishment of the provincial council system, we have strived to implement the 13th Amendment, and we shall do so within the purview of a unitary state. And it's most important that the people of the country, of all ethnicities, of all religious persuasions, and of all other various differences, caste, creed, and so on and so forth, that they are all brought into as one to accept this reality. 13th Amendment was proposed as a solution to the pervasive problem, and we are obliged to go ahead with it.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. To wrap up the questions, we're going to move back to Indika again. Here's a question in terms of gender roles and the systems and the structures that we're now questioning, given COVID-19 and the impact it's had on women. Indika, do you want to pose your question?
ඇත්තටම ස්ත්‍රීපුරු සමාජභාවීය වශයෙන් බෙදා හදාගෙන තියෙන කාන්තාවන් සහ පිරිමින් විසින් ක්‍රියාත්මක කළ යුතුයි සම්මත කරගෙන තියෙන සමාජය ඒ භූමිකාවල් හරහා ඒ සඳහා ඒ කෙරෙහි දැඩි බලපෑමක් කරන පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යයන් සහ ඇත්තටම පුරුෂත්වයන් ගැන තමයි මට ඔබතුමාගෙන් අහන්න තියෙන්නේ. අපි හොඳාකාරවම දන්නවා මේ COVID-19 තත්ත්වය තුළ ඇඳිරි නීති තත්ත්වයන් සහ සමාජ දුරස්ථභාවය ඒ වගේම නිරෝධායන ක්‍රියාවලි වගේ දේවල්වලදී මේ පිරිමින් බහුතරයක් තමන්ගේ පුරුෂත්වයන් සහ තමන්ගේ පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යමය ස්වභාවය භාවිතා කරලා මේ නීති රීති උල්ලංඝනය කිරීම සහ තැන් තැන්වල රංචු ගැහිලා ඒ වගේ තත්ත්වයන්ට යොමු වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමන් තුළ තියෙන ඒ තමන්ට දැඩි ප්‍රතිශක්තියක් තියෙනවා අයයි තියෙන මිත්‍යාව ඒ වගේම තමන්ට තනි තීරණ ගන්න පුළුවන් සහ තමන් ප්‍රචණ්ඩකාරී වගේ හැඟීම් තමන් දරන නිසා බහුතරයක් ආසාදිතයෝ පිරිමින් බවට පත්වීම වගේ දේවල් අපි දකිනවා. ඔබතුමා දකින්නවද මේ පුරුෂත්වයන් සහ පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යමය ස්වභාවය මේ COVID-19 වසංගත තත්ත්වයේ වැඩි ආසාදිතයන් පිරිමින් බවට පත්වීමට බලපානවා කියලා?
සමාවෙන්න මොකක්ද ඔබතුමා කිව්වේ පිරිමින් බවට පත් වෙන අදහස මට එච්චර තේරුන්නේ නැහැ.
COVID-19 ආසාදිතයන් සමස්ත ආසාදිතයන් ගත්තොත් බහුතරයක් පිරිමින් තමයි ආසාදිතයෝ බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම මේ තත්ත්වයට හේතු වශයෙන් දකින්නේ ගොඩක් වෙලාට පිරිමින් තුල තියෙන පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යමය ස්වභාවය සහ ඒ අය තුල පවතින පුරුෂත්වයන් භාවිතය නිසා මේ නීති රීති රෙගුලාසි එහෙම නැත්නම් ඇඳිරි නීති රෙගුලාසි නීති උල්ලංඝනය වෙන බවක් අපිට පෙනී යනවා. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් ගත්තොත් වාහන දහස් ගණනක් පොලිසි භාරයට අරගෙන තියෙනවා. තවත් දහස් ගානක් දැනට පොලිස් භාරයේ සිටින තත්ත්වයන් තියෙනවා. අපි ඒ වගේම අපිට මතකයි පහුගිය කාලේ යම් දිස්ත්‍රික් වලට එක් දිස්ත්‍රික්කයකින් තවත් දිස්ත්‍රික්කයකට ගමන් කිරීම තහනම් කරලා තියෙන අවස්ථාවල් වල ඒ නීති රීති උල්ලංඝනය කරමින් යම් ප්‍රදේශවලට විතැන්වීමට උත්සාහ කරා වගේ දේවල් මම ඔබතුමාගෙන් අහන්නේ මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයන්ට මේ පිරිමිගේ පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යමය ස්වභාවය එහෙම නැත්නම් ගති පැවතුම් මේගොල්ලෝගේ පුරුෂත්වයන් භාවිතය බලපානවා.
මෙහෙමයි මම හිතන්නේ ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ භේදයෙන් තොරව යම් කිසි වසංගතයක් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනකොට අපි හැමෝම පරිස්සම් වෙන්නට ඕන. මෙතනදී අපි බොහොම පරණ විදිහට මේ පුරුෂ භාවයේ පුරුෂාධිපත්‍යයේ තිබෙන ඔය හැඟීම ඒක ඔය කියන්නේ ඉතින් ඔය පුරුෂ පාර්ශවයේ සුපීරියර් කියන කතාවනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ කාන්තා පාර්ශවයට දැඩි ඉහළින් ඉන්නවයි කියන කතාවනේ. මම හිතන්නේ නූතන දියුණු සමාජවල එවැනි දෘෂ්ටි කෝණයකින් ජන සමාජයේ දිහා බලන එක ඉතාමත්ම අනවබෝධයෙන් යුතුව කටයුතු කරන දෙයක් හැටියටයි මම දකින්නේ. ඒ නිසා විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ රට තුළ ජන සමාජය තුළ ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ කෙසේ වෙතත් අපිට සිදු වෙලා තිබෙනවා වසංගතයකට මුහුණ දෙන්න. එහි විතරක් නෙවෙයි වසංගතයක් තුළ දැන් අපිට සිදු වෙනවා ඉදිරි මාස 2-3 ඇතුළත මැතිවරණයකට මුහුණ දෙන්න. ඉතින් මේ ක්‍රියාදාමයන් තුළ අපිට ඇත්තටම සෞඛ්‍යමය අභියෝග රැසකට මුහුණ දෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. මේ ක්‍රියාදාමයන් තුළින් ඔය අපි කතා කරන බොහෝ දෙනෙක් කතා කරන සෙකන්ඩ් වේව් එක එහෙමත් නැත්නම් තර්ඩ් වේව් එක දෙවෙනි රැල්ල තුන්වෙනි රැල්ල කොවිඩ් වසංගතය ව්‍යාප්ත වෙයිද කියන ඒ අවිශ්වාසයක් තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් එතනදී මේ මෙතන ලිංගිකත්වය පුරුෂ භාවය ගැන කතා කර කර ඉඳලා හරියන්නේ නැහැ. අපි බොහොම අර පරිස්සමෙන් අපි කරන්නා වූ වැඩ කටයුතු සියල්ලක්ම කරන්නට ඕන. ඒක ස්ත්‍රී පාර්ශ්වය වගේම පුරුෂ පාර්ශ්වයත් ඒ ගත යුතු සමාජ දුරස්ථ භාවය, ඒ වගේම මුවාවරණ පැළඳවීම, ඒ වගේම එක්රොක්වීම සිදුවෙනවා නම් එය බැහැර කිරීම, ඒ වගේම තමන්ගේ සෞඛ්‍යමය පිරිසිදු භාවය, නිවසේ පිරිසිදු භාවය, තමන්ගේ නිවස අවට භූමියේ පිරිසිදු භාවය, පරිසර සංරක්ෂණය, වගා සංග්‍රාම ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම, ආහාර සුරක්ෂිත භාවය, මෙන්න මේ වගේ වැදගත් කාරණා පිළිබඳව අපි අවධානය යොමු කරලා මේ COVID-19 බරපතලකම ස්ත්‍රී පුරුෂ බෙහෙදෙන් තොරව ඒ බලපාන ආකාරය පිළිබඳව හොඳ අවබෝධයක් අරගෙන අපි ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම කටයුතු කරන්නට ඕන. ඒ වගේම මම සඳහන් කරන්නට කැමති මේ අමතර කාරණාවක්. දැන් ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මම යෝජනා කරා මේ තත්ත්වය තුළ මාසකට පවුලකට රුපියල් 60,000ක් ලබා දෙන්නට ඕනේ කියලා. ඒක මම බොහොම විද්‍යාත්මකව ප්‍රකාශ කරේ. ඒ මන්ද ජනසංඛ්‍යාලේඛන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ 2016 සංඛ්‍යාලේඛන වලට අනුකූලව ආහාර සහ ආහාර නොවන වියදම් සඳහා 54,000ක් පමණ අවශ්‍යයි 4 දෙනෙක් ඉන්න පවුලකට 2015-16 කාලේ. මම ඒකට දල වශයෙන් රුපියල් 5,000කුත් එකතු කරලා කිව්වා හැම පවුලකටම 60,000ක් ලබා දෙන්නට ඕනේ කියලා. ඉන් පසුව වැඩිදුර පරීක්ෂණය කරලා රජයට මූල්‍ය වශයෙන් දරාගත හැකි මුදලක්, ඒ කියන්නේ අඩුම ගානේ ආහාර අවශ්‍යතාවය සඳහා දිනකට පුද්ගලයෙකුට අවශ්‍ය කිලෝ කැලරි ප්‍රමාණය ගණනය කරලා 4 දෙනෙක් ඉන්න පවුලකට 20,000ක් ලබා දී යුතුයි කියලා අපි ප්‍රායෝගිකව එක යෝජනා කරා. හැබැයි ඉතින් 20,000න් දැනට හම් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ මම හිතන්නේ මාස 2ක් විතර ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන කාලය 5,000ක් පමණයි. ලැබිය යුතුයි 20,000ක් හැම පවුලකටම මාසෙකට ආහාර ලබාගෙන ජීවත් වෙන්න. හැබැයි මේ 5,000 ලබා දුන්නයින් පස්සේ බොහොම සුලභ දර්ශනයක් වුණේ අපි දැක්ක මේ වයින් ස්ටෝස් ටික විවෘත කරාම, ඔය මත්පැන් ශාලා විවෘත කරාම කිලෝමීටර් ගණන් සමහර තැන්වල සමාජ දුරස්ථ භාවය තියාගෙන තවත් සමහර තැන්වල එසේ නොතබාගෙන අපි දැක්ක මේ පාරිභෝජනය සඳහා තමන්ගේ පාවිච්චිය සඳහා ඒ මත්පැන් ශාලා අසල එක දිගටම පෝලිං ගැහිලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මට මතක් වෙන්නේ මේ 5,000 කොහාටද ගියේ? 5,000 කොහාටද යන්නේ? ගෙදර ඉන්න භාර්යාවට මොකද්ද ලැබෙන සහනය? ගෙදර ඉන්න දූ දරුවන්ගේ සහ මාතෘත්වයේ පෝෂණ තත්ත්වය මේන් වර්ධනය වෙනවද නැද්ද? ඒ නිසා මම අන්න එතනදී මම හිතන්නේ පුරුෂ පාර්ශ්වයේ මාත් එක්ක තරහ වෙන්නේ නැති වෙයි. අර 5,000 දෙනකොට කාන්තා පාර්ශ්වයට ගෘහ මූලික පවුලක භාර්යාව කේන්ද්‍ර කරගෙන දුන්නා නම් මම හිතනවා ඒක වඩාත් වැදගත් වෙනවයි කියලා. මම දන්නේ මේ කියපු ප්‍රකාශයෙන් මට දේශපාලන හානියක් සිද්ධ වෙයිද කියලා. නමුත් කමක් නැහැ. මම හදවතේ තියෙන දේ මම බොහොම එලිපිටම කියන්නට කැමතියි. විශේෂයෙන්ම මම තවත් කාරණාවක් කියන්න මට අවසරය ලබා දෙන්න. ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය ණය මර උගුලකට අපේ රටේ කාන්තා පරපුර ගොදුරු වෙලා සිටිනවා. Microfinance recipients are in dire straits. The vast majority are in dire straits because of the exorbitant amount of interest rates. අධික පොලියක් අය කිරීම තුළ ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය ණයලාභීන් බරපතල ප්‍රශ්නයකට මුහුණ දෙලා තිබෙනවා. එක්කෙනෙක් දෙන්නෙක් නෙවෙයි දසදහස් ගණනින් ලක්ෂ ගණනින්. අපි ඒ අයගේ සුබ සාධනය ගැනත් හිතන්නට ඕන. ඒ වගේම මම සඳහන් කරන්නට කැමති මේ COVID-19 කාලවකවානුව තුළදී මාතෘ සෞඛ්‍ය සංරක්ෂණ වැඩසටහන්, ළමා සෞඛ්‍ය සංරක්ෂණ වැඩසටහන්, සෞඛ්‍ය මධ්‍යස්ථාන හරහා ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන පෝෂණ වැඩසටහන් හරියාකාරව ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට බැරි වුණා. කනගාටුවෙන් කියන්නට ඕන ත්‍රිපෝෂ කම්හලත් දැන් අද වහලා. එතකොට ත්‍රිපෝෂ ටික මව්වරුන්ටත් දරුවන්ටත් නොලැබෙනවා නම් එතනින් අපේ රටේ දරු පරපුරටත් මව් පරපුරටත් භයංකාර අවියෝග එල්ල වෙනවා. ඉතින් මම කියන්න කැමති මේ අද වැදගත් වෙන මාතෘකාව ඔන්න ඕවයි. ඒ නිසා මත්පැන් දුම්වැටි දුර්වලන ජන සමාජයක් බිහි කිරීමටත් අපි හැම විටම දේශපාලන බලවේගයක් හැටියට කටයුතු කරනවා.
Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. We're now going to move on to our very final 2 rounds. In this round, I open the floor to you to ask any questions from the panelists that you may have.
Right. So I want to first and foremost thank the moderator and the participants of this panel. I think it was a very enriching process for me to have participated in this Zoom forum. I learned a lot, and I also observed the critical, crucial, and difficult decisions that we have to take in forming public policy with special relevance and reference to women in society. As you know, we formulated a women's charter for the presidential election, and we signed a social contract to carry out the various proposals in that charter. We are right now in the process of reinventing that charter, in the sense in the post-COVID scenario, the inclusions and the exclusions of initiatives from that charter, because as you all know, the COVID pandemic has completely reformed and transformed the structures that guide domestic society and international society. So in the post-COVID scenario, I would make a humble request to request all of you to propose the various new additions, new initiatives that should be involved, that should be included in our policy agenda. I think that's something that we have to look at, and we have to update our women's program, the policy initiative that we enunciated a few months ago. So I would humbly request the active participation of providing policy proposals in a non-political manner, so that those issues that are national priorities can also be included in our national policy agenda and the manifesto. That is my humble request.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Premadasa. This brings us to the end of our live conversation. And to wrap up, I'd first like to thank the audience for tuning in, for sending us your questions today. And I'd also thank you, Mr. Premadasa, for joining us and for answering some very tough questions, and also for clearing the air on some concerns. I'd also like to thank our panel, Amita, Ambika, Saraya, Shreen, and Indika. Thank you for joining me in this discussion, and that concludes our discussion for today. Good night, everyone.
Good night.